My focus is on land use planning and providing what's called technical assistance to municipalities. So technical assistance, it's a lot like fixing a computer where there's a lot of moving parts and you might not sure what to do, and you need some help with that. So on a level of a town, there's a lot of moving parts and things you have to consider, and you might not know what to do. Same thing, that's what we're here for. So once we get that reversed, we'll get started. So
I would just turn the wall around.
Frank Township from the Milford Borough, and Penny Lewis is here from Milford Township. And this is really a training session. This is not a discussion of any politics or any issues before us. This is really, Ted was nice enough to offer to come up and train people from both the borough and the township. And so that's what he's here for tonight.
So what's everybody do? Where's everybody from? Why are you here? Is the first question I'll ask everyone. If you want to go around the room and just, say why you're here. Are you on a planning commission? Are you a council person? Are you a concerned citizen that wishes to learn more? The floor is yours.
I'll start.
All right.
I'm Penny Lewis, I'm the Township Supervisor for Milford Township. I feel that we probably need to have somebody come in to give us more help in trying to find out, to get some of the right zoning and to get some of the right instructions. And I don't want to have a divided town and township. So we're going to try to work together, but it's going to be, and hopefully to have a mediator to come in and figure things out.
All right.
Ditto for me.
And Frank and I have a very good working relationship.
We'll pass.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My wife wanted me out of the house. I'm on the Milford Planning Board, Milford Township Planning Board. Mitch, I wanted to see what you had to say.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Barbara Turquinio. I'm on the Milford Borough Planning Commission, and I'm very happy to work with Milford Township and on the shared vision, township vision. I'm Erica Burnett, just a concerned citizen. I'm born and raised here in Milford, and I'm concerned about growth in the future. Just want to learn more.
I'm Tricia Lefty. I'm here on behalf of the Historic Preservation Trust, primarily, and a lifelong resident.
I'm Rachel Hendricks. I'm a candidate for Milford Township Supervisor.
Peggy Emanuel, a concerned citizen.
Adrian Wendell. I am a Milford Borough Council person, and I'm also the former president of the Planning Commission in Milford Borough. So I'm it's like this is what we should have been doing probably.
Marnie,
Hmm?
Milford Township President, just keeping up with what's going on.
Okay.
Kim Marino, same thing.
Cool.
Joe Dooley, Zoning Hearing Board, Milford Borough.
I'm Sue Smith. I'm on the Milford Borough Planning Commission.
Annette Harr, Milford Borough Council, also concerned citizen.
All right. Cool. Thank you. So glad we all get to know each other. Like I said, just a few more minutes until we can get the projector turned around, and we'll get going. Everybody on the duties of the Planning Commission. So to give you guys an overview, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about state law governing planning, planning powers and duties, Planning Commission structure and business, the Planning Commission's roles in comprehensive plans, subdivision, and land development and zoning, and then Planning Commission interaction with officials and the public. Can everybody see this okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, what is a planning commission? A planning commission is a body of appointed citizens that serve within local government, acting as an advisory group to the municipal governing body on issues and policies related to planning, land use, and community development. So, the planning commission is an arm or a creature of the governing body. They're not independent. So what happens is the governing body will appoint these folks to advise them on, a colleague of mine basically says, what do we want to be when we grow up? What do we have as our vision for the community? So, next, what is planning? Well, planning, like I said, is what do you want to be when you grow up? It's your vision and goals for the future. It's a reality check on what's going on with your community. You come up with ideas to improve the community and the quality of life. You make some actions plans, and then you go out and recommend ways to do them. Think of it as, you know, your idea people. Your planning commission have ideas for the community. They solicit members of the community to hear their ideas and their visions on what they want, you know, in your case, Milford and Milford Township to be. So, next. What is a plan? So a plan is an official statement of policy in the form of text, maps, graphics used to guide public and private actions that affect the future. A plan provides decision makers with the information they need, which those decision makers are sometimes your elected officials, sometimes they're people looking to invest in your town, to make informed decisions regarding the long-range social, economic, and physical growth of the community. Planning is a process. Planning is not just a you do it and you're done thing. You're constantly evaluating, you're constantly researching, and you're constantly doing. It's one of those to where, and you have to figure this out within your community, you need to be flexible enough to adapt with your plans, but you also need to be focused enough so that you can move forward on the goals that you wish to achieve. So the state law governing planning is the municipality's planning code. So the MPC is uniform planning and land use enabling legislation which delegates certain police powers to municipalities to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare within the Commonwealth. The MPC enables and establishes standards for the creation of a planning agency, powers for comprehensive plans and land use ordinances, and procedures for the exercise of these powers. So this applies to everywhere in the entire Commonwealth except for Philadelphia and Pittsburgh because they're so unique in the size of their cities. So where can I find the MPC? So who here knows or has had any experience with the MPC? Raise your hand. Has it put you to sleep?
At times.
It's very long, it's very technical, there are sections of definitions, it's a little difficult to go through, but it is the big book that tells you the rules. So you'll need to know those rules at some point, especially if you're a member on the Planning Commission, and you can find that on the websites here, legis.state.pa.us. That's the website where you can find legislation passed by the two houses, and you can track those bills. But the document is just a wall of text, even more so. What we recommend is that you visit our website. We just revamped our planning page, so it's at dced.pa.gov/planning, and it's a great repository not only of the MPC, but of all sorts of other good information regarding planning, where you can just learn more about the topic. You can find out about best practices. We have some targeted publications on other topics like the Zoning Hearing Board, SALDO, comprehensive plans and depths, and things like that. So if you're going to go looking anywhere else, we really recommend that you don't. These two websites are always going to have the most up-to-date and amended version of this document. So if you find somewhere else that's advertising copies of the MPC, we recommend that you just go to our website. So planning powers and duties. So a planning agency. So section 201 of the MPC talks about the creation of planning agencies. The governing body of any municipality shall have the power to create or abolish by ordinance either or both a planning commission, which is normally a citizen body, or a planning department, which is professional staff. If neither, a municipality can establish a planning committee comprised of members appointed from the governing body, and you'll have your municipal solicitor and engineer serving as advisors for them. Now, a planning commission is one type of a planning agency, and a planning department is also. So who has a planning? So do both municipalities have a planning commission, or do you also have a planning department as well? Do you have a dedicated staff member? No,
Just commissions.
Just the commission. Okay, that's all right. If you did have a dedicated staff member, what you'd want to do is define in your ordinance who does what. So if anyone ever decides to hire a professional planner to support your planning commission, you would create some policy guidelines and just pass, an ordinance updating that you have this staff member now and they do these certain tasks that you deemed necessary for planning.
Both municipalities have used independent planners in the past.
Okay. All right, so all the activities that the planning commissions will do are going to be at the request of the governing body. So back to what we said earlier, the planning commission is an arm of the governing body. So when they ask you to do something, that's your job. So under the MPC, you're required to prepare a comprehensive plan. And we'll get actually more to what a comprehensive plan is later in this, but you've got some optional things that you can do as well. So you can prepare a zoning ordinance. You can make recommendations on zoning amendments. You can prepare a SALDO ordinance. You could administer a SALDO ordinance if your governing body gives you that authority. You can do studies, you can make recommendations, you can do testimony, and I'm here because I want to promote public interest in planning. Ultimately, planning is a good thing because you develop your vision for your community and you set yourself up to be successful. So if you look at the literature, so who here is a business person? Who here is involved in business? So if you go into the literature, you see that it's very often that successful businesses have business plans. And businesses that are also successful have a high rate of having business plans. So when you translate that over to the public sector, this comprehensive plan, it's pretty much the business plan for your town. And it's a way to, not guarantee success, but to help you successfully administer and design and make your community what you want it to be. So we already answered this question. If there's a planning commission and planning department, who does what? And that is defined by ordinance. So, question for everybody here. What duties has your planning commission performed in the last year? So and I'll go back, out of this wonderful list right here, what have you done, if I might ask the audience?
Just so you know, our planning commission, most of them are new people.
Okay.
But in the past year, there's been some ordinance changes and amendments made
Got it. Anybody else?
in reviewing plans for new construction.
We've done some SALDO.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, the planning commission is, what essentially, you can get active and you can promote interest in planning, you can always do that, but a lot of it is what the governing body assigns you. So there's not really a right or wrong answer, but if you have an active planning commission and you're promoting planning, you're getting input from people in the community, you'll certainly find benefit in doing that. So, planning commission structure and business. So here's about membership of the planning commission. You can be 3 to 9 members. So all the appointments, again, they're approved by the governing body. You have 4-year terms. So they're staggered. So there's never going to be a total, ideally, everybody's gone at once if there's no reappointment. It's 2 years point, 2 years point. All the members must be residents of the municipality, and a majority has to be citizen members. So a limited number can be officers or employees of the municipality, but that can't be a majority. The way this was designed, you want the citizen input. You want fresh faces, newer voices. You don't want people, you want, some people who are involved in city administration, as you can see by allowing less than a majority on the planning commission, but you want citizen members for the most part, where you have that one person from the municipality or that, less than a majority that can provide some of the technical and the borough or township knowledge. So, and last but not least, the zoning hearing board member can't be a planning commission member, sorry. So this is something new as of 2015. Your governing body can appoint 1 to 3 alternate members, and they can't be zoning hearing board members, and nor the zoning officer. What you can do is you can have them as a substitute for an absent member. They can be a substitute for a recused or disqualified member, or as needed to reach a quorum. The only thing about this is that unless you're a SALDO decision-making body, your planning commission, again, is that think tank. So having alternates, for more of a think tank-based body is not really something that is, extremely beneficial. You can do them, and if you're doing soldo to where you have to vote on something, yeah, that makes sense. But otherwise, there's not too much value in it. So conduct of business, your planning commission members may be compensated or reimbursed for expenses. They can also be removed for just cause, which is malfeasance, and malfeasance is wrongdoing. Misfeasance is the wrongful act of authority, and nonfeasance, which is a failure to perform a required act. Unfortunately, attorneys have advised that removal is not legally warranted because a member is not attending meetings. So that's just something that I think has come through in case law. But the Planning Commission does establish its own rules for procedures and annually elects a chair, a vice chair, and any other officers. And you are subject to the Sunshine Act and Open Records Law, where you do have to advertise your meetings. They're open to the public, and as well as the minutes and records. The Planning Commission also has to keep records of its actions and make an annual report by March 1st. That annual report is a really good opportunity if you want to get really aggressive into implementing your comprehensive plan to do a checkup on a lot of comprehensive plans. Good ones will list things that the municipality can be doing. So your Planning Commission checkup can kind of be, you go through your comprehensive plan, it's your roadmap, essentially, and you check off the things that you've done in your comprehensive plan. So our Deputy Secretary, Rick Viella, was a really big advocate in the comprehensive plan of using it as a roadmap. He was the mayor of Lock Haven, and for many years he took a really aggressive planning approach to where he got a lot of citizen input. He made sure that everybody was being listened to, and they developed this really strong comprehensive plan. And then the council and the mayor and the planning commission said, we've got the comprehensive plan, we're going to go out and do it, we're going to make this our map. And they experienced a lot of success with community and economic development projects in Lock Haven as a result. And when the public, you did have some worries about the public. It's like, why are we doing this? Why is this project occurring? Deputy Secretary Viella was able to present them with the comprehensive plan and say, here's our map. Here's what, as a community, that we engaged in the process and we decided, and here's why we move forward, and here's how we're going to continue to move forward. So ethical considerations, the Planning Commission actions are subject to public scrutiny, so they're not required to submit the Ethics Act statement of financial interest unless they're delegated to make saldo decisions. So if you make saldo decisions, again, you have to submit the Ethics Act form. And obviously you should avoid conflict of interest, vested financial interest, personal or business relationship, and just appearance. Appearances can be as damaging as actual conflicts. So when you're in doubt, what you want to do is seek advice from your solicitor or the State Ethics Commission, or you can just abstain if you feel that there's a concern. So, question for everybody again. 3 questions, actually. Who does the Planning Commission represent? Who does the Planning Commission serve? And what is the public interest? So, what do you guys think about that? So, who do you think the Planning Commission represents in your municipalities? Who does the Planning Commission serve, and what does everyone here think is the public interest? If you're such a small group, maybe if you want to go around again. If anybody has any thoughts on that.
The Planning Commission represents the supervisors.
Okay. Yeah, they are an arm of the governing body. Certainly. Under the municipal planning code, you're right. They are appointed by the supervisors. Anybody else?
I think the Planning Commission serves the supervisors, their governing body.
Okay. And then does anybody have any opinions on what the public interest is or anything like that?
I think the Planning Commission should represent the residents of the municipality.
Okay. So yeah, certainly, the Planning Commission, you're right. They should be the ones that, they're appointed by the governing body, but their duty is to serve the public interest. And certainly, as citizens and elected officials, there's a dialogue that has to occur to make sure that's definitely happening. So if anybody would like a break, normally these presentations I go quickly. So if anybody does need to get up or anything like that, I can wait or I can just keep going, so.
Keep going.
Keep going? All righty. So again, what planning commission questions have come up in your community? What's going on? Is what I would ask. So another one, you've got the why are you here? Well, what's occurring? So anybody?
I feel like the supervisors have appointed a planning commission who have an agenda and that they're not listening to members of our community.
Okay, anyone else?
What is going on, at least this is why, is whether we have a sewage system here or not. Other people are obviously upset about the apartments at Milford Township, though, not our borough. But I assume that's why most people are here.
Okay.
And also, I think that the questions that have come up is, there's not a clear focus, there's not a clear understanding between the Milford Township residents and Pike County residents as to what the vision is, according to the supervisors. We don't understand what the vision is. So there's some contention with that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Can I ask you a quick, I'm sorry.
Sure.
With regards to the state, is there a more cohesive, is there a planning commission that deals specifically with a county, like under the county umbrella versus individual municipalities? Because I think a part of the strife in this community is in understanding that what happens in one municipality impacts every municipality around it. So a planning commission would be Milford Township, Milford Borough, Westfall, Matamoras, but
yeah.
what is the,
Is there anything over that?
is there anything from a state
Yes.
perspective that kind of funnels them in and?
Good question. So you have statewide, the State Planning Board, which handles very, very large-scale land use issues, like on a totally statewide level. When you go lower than that, you know how I mentioned earlier, you can do your planning department, you can do a planning commission, things like that. You would look to the county. So I know Pike County does have a planning staff. They have a planning department. So, if you would think that it's a good idea for the county maybe to have a planning commission to take a larger, to have more people at the table perhaps. I don't know if they do or not.
They do.
They do.
have both.
Okay, so your county planning commission would be that body that takes the multiple stakeholders from throughout the community and takes the big picture perspective of what do we want kind of the county to do. Every 10 years, the county is obligated to refresh their county comprehensive plan. Now, some counties do it on their own. Other counties, I know Luzerne and Lackawanna, about 10 years ago, they did a joint comprehensive plan with each other. And then in the southwest, I believe, there are 6 counties actually that have come together to do a joint comprehensive plan amongst them all, so they can really zoom out and take this enormous regional perspective of what's going on in their counties. So, if as a group of citizens and elected officials, you want to see more involvement maybe with the county planning commission, I would say that's a conversation that you have to have with your county commissioners.
And if you have a county plan, can a municipality opt out of that plan unilaterally?
So,
Or how does that work? Like is there like a jurisdiction for that? Or is it just, hey, we think we're going to cooperate on this policy, but not on another?
so the county comprehensive plan is, all the comprehensive plans are advisory.
Okay.
So when you create a plan, you create your vision. And obviously, in the ideal world, people harmoniously create their plan and harmoniously follow their vision, and, it's not always like that, obviously. So the thing about planning is what you have only recommendations. So the county will do this plan, it'll seek public input, and then they'll make this recommendation, and the supervisors will adopt the recommendation of this comprehensive plan in a meeting.
It's a question. My understanding had always been, and I could be absolutely wrong, that the planning commission is advisory, and the decision-making elements are like the supervisors, for instance, in a township, right? So the planning commission will study and make recommendations and review questions before the township, and they will make suggestions to the supervisors, who are the ultimate decision makers, am I correct?
That's completely correct.
So are the supervisors obliged to follow the recommendations of the planning commission, or can they evaluate them and decide otherwise?
You just answered your own question, because they're recommendations. So since they're recommendations, actually, you can recommend something.
Take them or leave them, or modify them, or rework the schemes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, you said the counties are obligated to update their plans, but Milford Township and Milford Borough have a comprehensive plan that is over 10 years, so
It's overdue.
it's overdue. Is there, like you said, they're obligated to update it, so who's obligated by who?
Well, the county is obligated by the MPC. Now, to be completely honest with you, there are municipalities that they don't do plans, and the planning police don't come and get them or anything like that.
So I guess what I'm saying is, so there is this comprehensive plan that has been, I think it's over 40 years old now. So for it to continue, does it really mean anything, I guess?
Well, that's a really good question. So, does the plan mean anything is ultimately a question for you and your community to decide. I was just recently at a municipality where they had this comprehensive plan. I think it was done in 11 or 12, and I got everybody together, and I said, everybody who's going to come to this meeting, you should read this plan, and we're going to come together and we're going to talk about the plan. We're going to talk about what your thoughts on it are, where you think it's good, where you think it's lacking, how you think it's difficult to navigate. And what came out of that discussion was that even though this plan is older, it's still extremely relevant. There's another municipality that I used to work with. They had a Main Street plan done through a DCED program about 10 years ago. And I think it might have been even more. Might have been 10 years ago they adopted it, so it's probably, conceptually older than 10 years. And they still go back to this comprehensive plan, and they are attacking the elements in this comprehensive plan because they find that vision still relevant. Now, based on what you said, 40 years, practically speaking, probably not.
Well, it's not that old, but it seems
Well-
like the first one was done in 87,
Okay.
and then
13 years old.
now this one is
2000
13 years old, but we have had a plan.
Yeah, so this one's 13 years old. What you want to do is, you want to read it, you want to think about it, and your community has to decide for themselves if it's still relevant. The planning commission with the review, I would say if you want to decide that it's relevant, maybe that's a project that the planning commission would embark on, and you have leadership in the planning commission. They say, we're going to go through this plan A to Z. We're going to tab it. We're going to see what's going on in the community, and we're just going to check to see what's happened in the community that's still relevant to the plan. What we want it to look like, and where we should go. So, I can't decide that. You and your community.
Does the planning commission, would one of the functions of a planning commission be to encourage the residents of the area to attend meetings and react to what the current plans are and where we see need for change or not change. Wouldn't that be one of their main functions, is to solicit the residents' participation in evaluating where we are? I mean, I think the plan we're working under was 2008, and a lot has changed since 2008. So wouldn't this commission encourage citizens to come to meetings and review the various items and say, is this still vision, or have we changed our vision, or how should it be modified? If they're supposed to be representing the citizenry, right, wouldn't that be one of their main functions?
Yes, and that would be an excellent practice where annually, you've got citizen input, you had an annual comprehensive plan review meeting, you brought in the citizenry, and everybody just sat in a room like this and they had to talk with each other. And that would be extremely productive and beneficial to your community and your planning process. Anything else? All right, good talk. So, planning commission role. So back to this slide, the comprehensive plan. So, as we said, preparing the comprehensive plan is the single biggest task and the most important that a planning commission can do. It is an intensive 1 to 2 year process, and it typically involves a consultant. And as you said, you engage citizens and community groups. So this comprehensive plan, it'll lay out your vision and goals from the future. It'll analyze your current conditions, problems, needs, and opportunities. It plans for land use, housing, transportation, community facilities, natural and historic resources. And what you come up with are a list of short and long-range implementation strategies. So what I'm going to talk about briefly next is the implementable comprehensive plan. And the implementable comprehensive plan is something that's come up by one of our longtime planners, Denny Pucco. So he's been around since the early 2000s, but he's been doing planning for well over 30 years. And the idea around planning has changed. So you might look at some comprehensive plans done by the county or by municipalities or by other entities, and they're this thick, and they're really dense, and they've got a lot of data, and you don't understand the data or the context of the data, or there's a ton of history in them. And if you want to use that plan to read and to do, it's really difficult because after page 10, you're ready to fall asleep. So what the implementable comprehensive plan does is it takes a look at what's going on in your community. What are some land use issues that are truly things that we need to tackle? It's not making a plan for the sake of putting a book together like a Harry Potter. It's putting together a true guide and a roadmap where you get to move forward and you get to decide and you get to actually take action on the things that are decided in that plan. And it's done in a way, again, that the average citizen can go through, read it. You've got lots of design, you've got lots of pictures so that your visual learners, your text-based learners, so that everybody can come in and see, here's what we want to do throughout the town. Again, practical, strategic, results-oriented, and action-oriented. That's the spirit of the new comprehensive plan. And in prior plans, you have to cover, the municipal planning code mandates that you cover all the topics that I mentioned before. But the thing is, what you want to focus on, where you want to use your budget, especially with the consultant, are the issues in your town that matter. So the stuff that matters, there's going to be a lot of writing on, there's going to be a lot of pictures, there's going to be a lot of text, and the stuff that's not so relevant to your community that you decide through the planning process, there's not going to be much more than a page or less. You're just going to have it there to kind of meet the MPC requirement. So, again, how often should a comprehensive plan be updated? And the comprehensive plan shall be reviewed at least every 10 years. But, as often as needed, you want to review and update it. I know some communities that Denny has... Oh, go ahead.
I have a question. Is a revision to the comprehensive plan something that can be ongoing, or is it done in a shell swoop?
Yes. It can be both. So you can choose to constantly, update and revise your comprehensive plan, Or you can say, you can be more structural with it where, you decide every 2 years you're gonna have your revision committee and do your revision. The nice thing about the law is you have some parameters that you have to work in under the MPC, but really, if you find that a more rigid structure of review and update works well, do it, go for it, and that's great. But if you find that your communities benefit from a more fluid nature of doing your planning process, and that works for you, do it.
When you have a joint comprehensive plan, and you have 2 municipalities or more than 2 municipalities working together, how do the updates function? Do you have to have the approval of both groups? Do you, can each one have a section, or, is there a certain way that you've seen the most successful cooperations move forward, especially when there may be some issues that they agree on and some issues that they do not?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, you want to, in doing comprehensive plans, you want to do them jointly because you get some, I'll call them bonuses, in the MPC from doing a joint comprehensive plan. So, if you can do your comprehensive plan jointly in a way that says, we want this, community X wants this, community Y wants this, and we're going to make each of our wants come together as much as possible. Because even though you may want 2 different things, it's not going to be productive if community 1 does something and community 2 does something completely opposite. Because that clash, it can be in many different ways, but that clash is just going to hurt the quality of life. Because if one community wants to be transit-oriented, cars, stuff like that, and one community wants to be walkable, and one community goes totally one way, and the other community goes totally the other way because they don't want to talk to each other, nobody wins there. You should find a way in your joint comprehensive plan process to at least get what each of you want in the best way possible, because it's not like you can pick up your town and go somewhere else. So the bonuses, though, getting back to that, for doing the joint comprehensive plan are regarding zoning ordinances and land use. So we'll use, you have a borough here and you have a township. Under the MPC, each municipality, and this is general, so there are a little bit of exceptions to this, has to accommodate for all legal land uses, basically. So whether that be garden apartments, or adult bookstores, or single-family homes, or anything like that, or factories or landfills, you have to accommodate under the MPC for those legally allowed uses. But if you do a joint comprehensive plan, it enables you to do a joint zoning ordinance. So you can share your land uses. So now, under the law, that body, which consists of the borough and the township, is looked at as one whole unit. So, say for example, the township has a land use, like a landfill somewhere, that the municipality wants to say, we don't want it here, or a quarry, or whatever else. They're referred to as LULUs in planning, which is locally unwanted land uses. You can say, well, we already have the landfill in the township, and we already have maybe some of the bars and things like that in the borough, because maybe the township doesn't want bars, and that's how we're going to distribute our land uses. But somebody gets to take something and somebody gets to take something else, instead of everybody has to take everything.
I have another question.
You're asking great questions.
I believe the county has 11 municipalities, I think, a couple of boroughs.
13.
How many? 13? 13, corrected, 13. And to say that this particular, like a borough and one township are gonna work together, why wouldn't we try to get a comprehensive plan that addressed more than, because I mean, you can draw a line on a map, but it doesn't mean it's not influencing more. And one of the things we're wrestling with right now is municipal sewer. Okay, and municipal sewer is influencing the potential for expanding on municipal sewer is at the heart of some of the questions we're dealing with in terms of whether we can handle certain densities, right? And given that, being that that goes beyond just the borough and the township, because that involves up the 3-lane into other municipalities, right? Wouldn't there be a benefit to trying to get a comprehensive plan that address more than just 2 entities?
Yes, and I'll actually tell you about one that's doing it right now. So in Scranton, there's an organization called the Scranton and Abington Planning Association. 9 municipalities came together to make a joint comprehensive plan. In that joint comprehensive plan that the 9 municipalities did, you had Scranton, so the city of Scranton. You had Dunmore, which is urban, city. Then you have Clark's Green, Clark's Summit, Waverly, Dalton. That ranges from
All the
boroughs.
personalities,
Yeah,
right?
that range, that's everything. You know, that's all the land uses. And that's a big picture, and it's a big picture view. And what they're doing now is they've come together. We gave them a grant through our municipal assistance program to do a joint zoning ordinance amongst all 9 of those municipalities. So they're able to look at their what do we want where kind of question as a 9 municipality body and do it on a large scale. And it's really starting to become a model for other municipalities throughout the state.
Because doesn't that also allow certain municipalities to like swap off uses? If we view this area beyond just the borough and the township of Milford, but the larger entity, right? I mean, there are characteristics of the land that vary greatly from like a small commercial area and a more rural area. And can't they kind of swap off responsibilities? Like, we're going to definitely need a, but this municipality is far better able to handle that than the rest of them, so we swap functions.
Yes.
Isn't that something that comes out of expanding the comprehensive plan beyond the smaller to the larger entity?
Yep, you're completely correct. And under the MPC, actually, if we're going to get into that, the world is your oyster almost. You can do it with as many municipalities as you want, as long as they're what's called contiguous. That's a fancy word for next to each other. So they have to connect.
Touch.
Yeah, they have to touch, right. But if there's one small exception to where if you're all in the same school district, you can also do that as well if like one of them decides to not be contiguous with each other.
When was that formed, the one in Scranton? Yeah.
That project started about more than a decade ago to get together the comprehensive plan. And right now, they've gone through 10 years and 1 DCED planner. They had someone, her name was Cindy, previously working, and now I work in her position. She actually ended up retiring. You know, it's a process, and if there's one thing that I can emphasize about planning, it is truly a vision for the future. And when you look into 20 years from now, you have to start working as if you're going to be doing something 20 years from now. There's a really cool story that I heard somewhere, and I don't even know if it's true or not, but it makes the point. Napoleon and his troops were marching through France, and Napoleon had said to his second in command, I would like my men to be marching in shade. And his second in command had said, Sir, trees take 30 years to grow. And he said, well, that's why you have to do it now. And that's the approach that you have to take for planning. There are short-term things that you are going to have to focus on that are important, but there is a long-term vision you're going to be working toward. And if you want an effective planning process, you have to balance the short, the medium, and the long term. So if you do your planning process and something comes up where it says, like, this is just an example, let's do planted flower pots, or let's plant trees. Like, if you can plant the trees now, plant the trees. Because what you do is you show that there's bucket list items on our plan that we're making happen now, while the behind the scenes, the grant applications, the design, the churning occurs to do the big capital projects that you might not really understand too well until the big public meetings occur, when you have the engineers with the giant design boards showing what you're going to do.
Another question, sorry. We're influenced here by the National Park Service, because we got that 70,000 acre, the Cox Island project, which was a disaster. And that has influenced what the various municipalities that are closer to the park are influenced by. And even if you go all the way down to 3 Lane, you've still got the parklands running on the backside of many of the properties in the municipalities. So if we could even get a cooperative effort between all the municipalities, is there any benefit to try to involve the Federal Park Service, or is that too optimistic?
By all means, if you want to do something aggressive like that, and you want to do a SAPA style plan like that, a SAPA, like the municipalities in Scranton, if you want to be engaged in that process, by all means, dial up your congressman, dial up your senator, and see if you can have them get the National Park Service involved. With the planning process, you want to include as many people as possible that affect what you're doing. So if those parks are something that is an issue in your community, you want to definitely do your due diligence and bring in the folks from the National Park Service, and if anything, have a conversation with them about what they're looking to do, what you're looking to do, so at the very least you have them on record and you know.
So it's not beyond the realm of a good objective to try to broaden this base as much as possible.
That's correct. So the thing about planning is there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns. So you want to tackle as many of the known unknowns as you possibly can to at least have that knowledge, to bring order to possibly something that you might not know about, so that when something unknown, truly unknown, does come up, you're as prepared to deal with this totally new, out of left field thing as possible, because you've covered like a ton of your other bases. You're trying to not reactively, but proactively find as many things in your community that you can at least, define. You can draw lines around it. You can at least figure out what they are through your planning process.
Can you just clarify, please, with the divvying up of the land uses? So you have to have just the joint plan, or the joint plan plus the joint zoning ordinance?
Yes. So you need to have, we highly recommend that if you're going to divvy up land uses, that you engage in the joint comprehensive plan process. I believe, and I have to check the MPC on this one, so I have to go through the book this thick and find it, but I think you can do a joint statement of community objectives, but I would highly recommend against that and say, do the comprehensive plan together if you want to share the land uses, because everybody is way more on the same page than they would be just with that small, less detailed statement.
Another quickie question. We have in this area up here a significant number of private communities. And these private communities had come about over, I don't know what year, were they all blossoming?
60s.
Okay, and that brought in a huge influx of people from outside the area. And these private communities are their own like little governments.
Homeowners associations.
Right. Some more successful than others, but they're an entity that is a real thing. And when we talk about like even any zoning or development, residential development, the question comes up, well, where is the recreational component to say for instance, a new residential development. Well, most of these private communities have significant recreational facilities, which kind of serves that segment of the population. So the question is, do you need to duplicate that outside of the private communities to serve everybody, or can people coming to the area decide whether they want that type of community, or they're looking for a more traditional, like Milford Borough?
Well, I would, that was a tough one.
Huh?
That was a tough one. So I would say that more so than anything, that's something that you would want to do some soul searching on. I think there's a lot of ways you can go with that. I have a colleague who is a planner like me within DCNR, and what I would say is that when you do your comprehensive plan process, that I would highly recommend that you bring in my colleague Christine DeTore from DCNR, and she would be the person that, you know, when you're engaged in that process, would be able to give you a really educated perspective on what recreationally other communities do in dealing with those planned residential developments, and kind of putting all the pieces together. That's just, you know, admittedly not my...
Makes it sound complex, but it really isn't if you think about it in the broad sense. You know, all of these things influence each other. And one of the concerns about things under consideration right now is, well, is that going to raise everybody's taxes? You know, are we going to be able to supply the services to new residential complexes, right? And that also takes into account all the private communities, many of which have their own fire and police and ambulance groups and so forth, you know, picking up some of the slack.
Yeah, you just have to take inventory and explore, and the answer, I think, will present itself to you in that regard through the process. So that answer will be produced through the planning process.
So would you invite the private community associations to participate?
Yeah, I definitely would invite them to participate, because they are part of the greater municipalities that would be involved in your plan. And I think it's, you know, you can't ignore the fact that they exist and they impact on everything else in the township, so you might as well have them involved.
Just to answer part of that, but I've been in zoning a long time. Most of the recreational areas that are in subdivisions are part of the saldo for that municipality that requires for so many homes, you gotta have so much area put aside for recreational use. And it could be the same for any type of development, even like a hotel. It would actually be part of the saldo when they're constructing it, that would be in there, that'd be dedicated to that. Beyond that, as far as going into the township or the borough, the borough already has parks, but like the township doesn't have a park. If the township was to put a park in, then you're gonna be looking at possible tax increases for that, because you're gonna have maintenance on the park, equipment, repairs, and people.
But then doesn't that go back to the residents of the
That would be
township saying
yeah,
whether
if the
does
residents of the
Milford
township wanted it.
want recreation internally, or can they source recreation through the federal park? And
Well, you could do that. You could always say, you know, federal parks, recreation, it's open to the public.
right.
Yeah, and those are, like, that discussion there, that's a microcosm of what you explore. And you have a consultant, you know, the consultant will help you kind of, and you know, your other state agency partners, like I said, DCNR and the feds, you know, bring them in. They're the ones that you sit at the table and you kind of just, you hash that out what you want. A good consultant too, you know, in a plan will be able to provide you some sort of equivalent kind of ballpark type dollar cost for projects. And so you can say, well, we want the grade A park because we've identified that recreation is a need in our community. Well, it might cost a lot of money. So if we, you know, you explore your options is ultimately what you're doing. So.
Can I ask you a question? If one municipality's development imposes public safety concerns on the neighboring municipalities by way of, you know, changing a traffic pattern or something like options of the neighboring municipalities for countering that, dealing with that?
Oh, man. Well,
We're in an area where there are very few ways in and out.
right,
And unfortunately, we're also in a county that doesn't have its own hospital.
okay.
So in terms of public safety, we are very reliant in getting to, from here, believe it or not, we would need to go to Port Jervis. If there was
Or
an-
Wayne County.
Well, Port Jervis is the closest one, which
It
is a
would
whole
be,
different state.
it would be the closest one. And I'm looking at if there was an emergency in Milford Borough, between here and that hospital, before you even cross into the neighboring state, you have, I think, 6 traffic lights. So if a municipality, Milford Township, were to put in another development or development along the 3-lane, that would require, 3 more traffic lights, I think that would really impose a burden on any other community, right? So
Yeah.
how do you deal with that situation?
Well, that's,
That falls under that county umbrella?
there's so many different dynamics to it. I genuinely do, like, I know in a few conversations I've had with some folks just up to this, I know a few specifics, but I don't know enough specifics to address like that very, very specific situation.
Right.
What I would say is that you want to get as many people involved as possible to have the discussion over it. So, are you on a state road here?
We're on a state and federal road.
Bring in PennDOT.
Yeah.
Talk to someone.
I know what they've done in Westfall, because I was just talking to some of the township supervisors. They actually have something implemented now where they know they're coming in and they have green lights and they roll right through the green lights, the ambulances now. It's all set up via however it is.
Emergency services
Thank
has
you.
control over the
And they
lights.
have control over the lights. And-
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
in terms of in terms of the rural character of this community, to explode your population overnight, you're not dealing with just the technological aspect of a green light, but you're dealing with more traffic on that road and cars to go through in order to get some.
That will all be PennDOT's problem.
Yeah, that's something that you
Well, I
want.
think it's my problem if I'm in the back of an ambulance, but
Yeah, you'd want to really talk to PennDOT about that, and you want to talk to, that transportation planning is, I do a lot of, like the community planning the more generalized comprehensive plan stuff that I'm talking about now. Transportation planning gets very technical, especially when it gets into the multimodal and things like that. And so, your best resources would be with PennDOT, and if it's federal, Federal Department of Transportation, if there's some sort of designated, the road has. That also, what I can emphasize enough is that's going to be part of a greater conversation. Because again, all these things, it's an ecosystem that affects all of them. So, who in your municipality is taking a leadership role in implementing the comprehensive plan? Because implementation is a part of planning. So let's go back. We did the comprehensive plan. We made this great book. We've got this really awesome document that says these great things that we should do. Well, it's not a success until you actually go out and do them. So you want to promote implementation and keep planning. The Planning Commission, you want them to be the champion of the plan. You want them to update the planning-related zone ordinances, so that's SALDO and zoning. Again, the annual comprehensive plan review. What did we do? What should we do next year? You want to review updated community information, monitor changes in development, economy, livability, health. And, as you said, you want to hold your futures roundtables. You want to constantly be looking at what your vision is going to be in a way that is, flexible enough, but also rigid enough where you can, rigid enough to accomplish, flexible enough to deal with things that come up. So, we're going to talk about SALDO next, which is a subdivision and land development ordinance. So that's something that's done at the request of the governing body, and SALDO regulates the creation and layout of a subdivision or land development. You've got definitions of that in the MPC. If I printed an MPC out for everyone here, I wouldn't have enough paper or enough printer ink, so you'll have to go online and find it if you dare. So associated improvements for streets, sidewalks, water, sewer, and dedication of land or fees for recreation facilities, and the planning agency duties, again, at the request of the governing body, prepare a saldo, and if the proposed saldo was not prepared by the planning agency, the governing body has to submit saldo to the planning agency for recommendation at least 45 days before the public hearing. So, duties as specified in saldo, you review, you make recommendations on applications, including the consideration of modifications and waivers and conditions if appropriate. And if you're delegated by the governing body, you can actually make the final decisions on these applications. So, does anybody here, have you ever watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I've never liked
It's all the TV show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? No? There's an episode where one of the characters, Charlie, is looking at a chart like this, and he looks crazy. This is the typical saldo application procedure, and there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to, rather than explain this chart, which is extremely difficult, what I will recommend that you do is you go to our website, so dced.pa.gov, and there's a publication in our planning series on saldo, and it basically lists it out in text form. If you wish to review it, basically you can just read through the text, and it will much better explain it than this chart. So basically, what has to happen is you have 90 days from a complete application to get it to the governing body. You have 15 days for a written decision, and then it goes through some further process to get it through zoning or anything else. This could really be its own, half an hour course on the saldo application procedure. So saldo applications in the clock, again, you have to render a decision and communicate it within 90 days. The county has to review it 30 days prior to approval. You have a written decision letter, 15 days, and then reported plats 90 days after plan approval or date of delivery following the completion of conditions. So you can request, the applicant can request extensions on these timelines, but you always have to make sure you get it in writing. If you don't meet the timelines, the plan could be deemed approved. You don't want anything deemed approved, because when it goes through and it's deemed approved, basically it can be very poor, and it'll go through because the parties responsible neglected to properly review the application. So you really want to avoid any sort of deemed approval. Okay. So the zoning ordinance and zoning amendments. So zoning regulates the use of land by classification of municipality in the various zoning districts. You have the size, the height, the location, and the land occupied by structures. You have the density and intensity of uses. And the planning agency, upon request of the governing body, prepares the zoning ordinance, text, and map for the municipality. So, amendments. So, proposed amendments, if not prepared by a planning agency, the governing body has to submit an amendment to the planning agency for recommendations at least 30 days before the public hearing. Conditional uses, you make recommendations and applications for conditional uses specified in the zoning ordinance. So reviewing land development and zoning applications is an important aspect of your comprehensive plan implementation. A key is to having saldo in the zoning standards that are designed to implement the comprehensive plan and the community's goals and objectives. So you're not making rules for rules' sake. You create your rules, you design your guidelines so that you create the community you want to see, and you enshrine that in your law through your zoning and your saldo. So finally, interaction with officials and the public. So the governing body, it's important to understand their philosophy and policies as a member of the Planning Commission. You want to talk to each other. You want to make sure that you're having honest and constructive discussion with everyone. It's not adversarial. You're going to be talking with municipal staff, your manager, your planner, your engineer, if you have any. A consultant is an extremely important part of the planning process. You can have a really good consultant, and they can do so much for you if you're looking to engage in a planning process. Also you're going to be interacting with, as we said, as many people as possible, your local boards, your authorities, your committees, as well as your private landowners, your developers, and your architects and your other design professionals. So public participation is important, as we said, during any planning process. People get a say, and the more consensus you have and the more people involved, you build your stakeholder support, and you're able to recruit people to take part in your vision, to help them get engaged in doing things in the community. Effective planning process, you should have multiple and varied public participation. So that means planning committees and work groups comprised of municipal officials, community stakeholders, and citizens. This is a great group of people here together because that's everybody. Telephone or in-person interviews with these stakeholders. You want to do paper or web-based community surveys, design charrettes, open houses, interactive project websites and social media, online meetings, interaction at community events. And then there's something called tactical urbanism. That laundry list of stuff. A lot of that in the planning process, your consultants will have the expertise in doing because they've been to a lot of places and they know, how to get people out and how to get people to do things and really deliver their input in a community. They're the experts. They go everywhere. They do this. They design the plans and they get as much input as possible. So with intergovernmental cooperation, again, you always want to talk to everybody. You can have joint meetings and joint work sessions. It's great that we've got people from the township and the borough here. Formally, you can get your MPC required consultations. You can do joint multi-municipal planning commissions. You can do a multi-municipal comprehensive plan, a joint municipal zoning ordinance, and intergovernmental cooperation agreements. Here's the cool thing. You actually, if you do a joint comprehensive plan, you don't have to do a joint municipal zoning ordinance. You can have your own individual zoning ordinance with your own zoning hearing officer and your own zoning hearing board and your own planning commission, as long as you do an intergovernmental cooperation agreement that says we're going to do the joint comprehensive plan together and share land uses. That is one of the things that's so important about the project in Scranton that I mentioned earlier. Not only is every single one of those municipalities sharing the land use with each other, but they're actually also retaining their current structure of the zoning officer, the zoning hearing board, and all their administration. So despite the fact that it is a regionally focused ordinance, it is locally enforced. So it's your neighbors, for better or worse. It's your townspeople taking care of your ordinance and your part in that vision of the multi-municipal comprehensive plan. So finally, you want to hold effective meetings. You want to adopt reasonable rules and procedures. You want to prepare an agenda. Provide the meeting info in advance to your members, including everything they need to make the decision. Again, be prepared for the unexpected. So take care of as much of those known unknowns as you can. You want to apply your appropriate criteria for decision making. And for working meetings, you want to use constructive exercises for generating ideas and building consensus. Again, that's something a consultant, and even, if you practice it, you can get good at. There's a really awesome consultant, I can't remember who they were, but I was at a meeting of all the county planning directors, and they had these decks of cards. And you did these things with decks of cards that you could do projects for your communities with. And it's really neat. Each card is a different kind of idea that you can use your community with. And there's all sorts of different really creative things that you get into and you say, oh, this is kind of cute and I don't need to do this. Then you get involved with it and you're not only offering good input, but you're very entertained in the process. So, there's a lot of creativity in the consensus building and in the idea generating. So, any additional planning commission responsibilities? Pretty much we covered it all. Again, it's the arm of the governing body and the interface between citizens, landowners, developers, and it's all about recommendations. You want to make the good recommendations so that your supervisors are able to have the ideas that you generate and act on. It's really a team effort, so everybody has to work together. Planning commission, the citizen groups, the organizations, everybody has to work together to plan and implement the plan. So some resources, if you are a planning commission member, you should have a copy of the municipality's planning code, whether it be digitally or not. Check out our planning series publications, again, dced.pa.gov/planning. You should read your municipal comprehensive plan, your SALDO, and your zoning. Some places have an official map, I don't know if you guys do or not, but you should just, you should be aware of all the plans and all the things you have in your communities, especially for your planning commission members who are brand new. They should read everything as quickly and as focused as they can, so they just have a grasp on the ideas and the vision and the rules that govern the community and develop an educated opinion. We're here to help facilitate people making educated decisions, having educated opinions, so that the decisions that you make and the recommendations that you make are as beneficial to your community as they can possibly be. So I'll close with that, and does anybody have any additional questions?
I had a question. So I think at this point, the assumption's made that your planning commission is already assembled. But as a matter of planning for going forward, you work for the state.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, in order to instill confidence from a municipal citizen's residence, based on your professional experience, what do you believe to be essential qualifications for a planning commission candidate?
Wow, that's a good question.
I think it's really important.
So I would say there are people with different skill sets.
Different what?
Skill sets.
Yes.
And people in and from diverse backgrounds bring different positive qualities to a planning commission. So you want to have a diversity of people who are good at different things and come from different backgrounds, but are able to understand the material that they're looking at, and that's not easy, that takes time. So one of the things I would say is you have to have the dedication to read all the documents and develop the background you need to make the best input and the best recommendations possible. And then your other skill sets, if you have those diverse skill sets, you have to be able to work with other people and communicate well with other people. So I would say, dedication and ability to communicate are the two biggest things that you would want in a planning commission member.
And planning commissions can be from how many to how many people?
3 to 9.
3 and up?
3 to
3
9.
to
So
9.
minimum 3, maximum 8.
As an employee of DCED, can you talk a second or two about how DCED uses comprehensive plan information in determining grant applications?
Yeah, so I talked to some of the program directors, and they have scoring systems in which they rank grants. So the grant system throughout the Commonwealth, it varies, because some grants are done through what's called the Commonwealth Financing Authority. Other grants are done more internally through just a group of people like myself who look at these applications and decide on their merits. What I would say is that when you do a grant application, if you come to that grant application with a strong citation of your comprehensive plan, as in, we're applying to XYZ to do XYZ. Don't know, whatever it may be. This is part of this bigger picture operation. We've already done these things as cited in our comprehensive plan to do this bigger, to do this, to have this puzzle piece now come in and enhance this part of the project. So you show that you went through the planning process, you've implemented the recommendations, and you can cite as detailed as possible. Like I would say, if you have a copy of your comprehensive plan and they let you attach that in that grant application, attach the copy of the comprehensive plan, start citing the pages and the spots where you're meeting that comprehensive plan and how you've done that, and show that you've taken this holistic look, you've implemented it, and now, this is how you're going to partner. Because essentially, grant application is a partnership. This is how you're going to partner with whomever you're asking for this grant money from to bring the most impact in this project. And that will impress people because it shows that it's a worthwhile and a productive investment.
And does it also get more points if there are multiple municipalities supporting the application and if the plan is a multi-municipal plan?
Yeah, in some. I'm giving you really general information because everybody kind of does their own stuff different. There's a lot of different departments throughout the state. But generally speaking, if you've got a lot of municipalities involved, and this is part of a comprehensive plan, and you show how this puzzle piece fits in really well, yeah, 100%.
Thank you, Ted.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
Do you see any value in a single municipality comprehensive plan?
Yeah, I mean, so nobody's an island, obviously. If I had to choose between nobody doing a comprehensive plan and the single municipality doing a comprehensive plan, I would say by all means, have the single municipality do the comprehensive plan. But more is better for multiple reasons. You want more, obviously, because it saves on costs. And also, our grant program, the municipal assistance program, generally speaking, if you're just doing an individual municipal comprehensive plan, we're probably not interested. If you're doing a comprehensive plan that is amongst several municipalities, you're finding ways to work together, to share resources, to have not only a plan that encompasses more, but gets more bang for your buck, then we take a very serious look at you when you're engaging in a multi-municipal plan with a multi-municipal application. I mean, there are exceptions, obviously, like if there's something really special that you're going to do in your individual municipal comprehensive plan, you might stand a little bit of a competitive chance, but again, get those other municipalities in on it. Try to do something regional planning. It will significantly increase your chances of receiving funding through our municipal assistance program.
Thank you, Ted. Both the township and the borough really appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.